3 centuries had passed since humanity first breached the void between stars, their crude fusion drives carving paths through the darkness that more advanced species had long since abandoned. While the Veltar floated in their crystal cities and the Nixani meditated in their thought gardens, humans had done something different. They had survived. Captain James Kane stood at the observation deck of the UES Defiance, his weathered hands pressed against the reinforced titanium glass viewport. Beyond the barrier, the Helix Nebula churned in violent purples and golds, a stellar graveyard where ancient suns had died screaming. Most species avoided such places, called them cursed, haunted. Humans built research stations there. "Sir," the voice belonged to Lieutenant Commander Ava Cross, her reflection ghosting across the viewport's surface. "We're receiving priority transmissions from the Galactic Council. Admiral Reyes wants an immediate conference." Kane didn't turn. Couldn't. Not when the nebula was singing to him, not in sound but in something deeper. Something that made his bones ache with recognition. "Tell the Council they can wait," he said, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. "We've got bigger problems." Dr. Cross stepped closer, her scientific mind already calculating possibilities. "The energy readings from the nebula's core, they don't match any known phenomena. It's almost like something's waking up." Kane's words hung in the recycled air like a prayer, or a curse. 3 sectors away, in the crystalline spires of the Veltar homeworld, High Chancellor Zathkari felt the universe shift. It was subtle, a vibration in the quantum substrate that most beings couldn't perceive. But the Veltar had evolved beyond physical limitations. Millennia ago, their consciousness existing as pure thought wrapped in bodies of living crystal. They felt the cosmos breathe. And now it was holding its breath. Zathkari's form shimmered from deep blue to worried silver as she accessed the collective memory banks. Her species had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had witnessed the birth of stars and the heat death of entire galaxies. But this resonance, ancient Protocol 779, she whispered to the council chamber, her voice causing harmonic vibrations in the crystal walls. The sleeper protocol. The assembled Veltar grew silent. Even their living walls ceased their eternal humming. "Impossible," spoke Elder Ketheron, his ancient form pulsing with disbelief. "The Reaper was sealed beyond the veil of reality itself. The architect races made certain." "The architect races are dust," Zathkari interrupted, something she had never done in her 3,000 years of existence. "And the seals," she paused, accessing deeper memory crystals that hadn't been touched for epochs. "The seals were designed to respond to specific quantum signatures." "What signatures?" Ketheron's form darkened to near black. Zathkari's answer came as a pulse of pure terror transmitted directly into their shared consciousness. Deathworld species achieving stellar expansion. Aboard the Defiance, Dr. Cross was discovering the same terrible truth through entirely different means. "Captain, you need to see this." Her voice carried the kind of controlled panic that came from staring into the abyss and having it stare back. "The quantum resonance patterns. I've been running them against our xenoarchaeology databases." Kane finally turned from the viewport, his steel-gray eyes focusing on the holographic display Cross had conjured from the ship's AI core. Mathematical formulae danced in 3-dimensional space, painting a picture that defied comprehension. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "Proof that we're not the first Deathworld species to reach the stars." Cross's fingers danced through the hologram, highlighting key data points. "This energy signature, it matches archaeological findings from 17 different dead civilizations. All of them aggressive expansionists, all of them mysteriously vanishing at the height of their power." Kane felt ice water replace the blood in his veins. Mysteriously. No survivors. No ruins, no trace except for quantum echoes in dead space. Cross's voice dropped to a whisper. "And Captain, the mathematical progression suggests whatever killed them, it's stronger each time it awakens." The Defiance shuddered, not from engine vibration or gravitational stress, but from something far more primal. In the depths of space, ancient machinery older than the solar system was beginning to turn. Deep within the Helix Nebula's core, where temperature and pressure should have been sufficient to crush any known matter, something that was not quite alive and not quite dead stirred for the first time in 65 million years. The Reaper had many names across many cultures. The Veltar called it Kefrax, the final silence. The Nixani knew it as Morthul, ending of songs. Humanity, in their typical fashion, had given it a name both simple and terrifying: death. But the Reaper was not death as most species understood it. Death was natural, inevitable, sometimes even merciful. The Reaper was correction. In the beginning, when the universe was young and chaotic, the architect races had built their great work, a cosmic mechanism designed to maintain balance. For every expansion of life, there must be contraction. For every civilization that grew too aggressive, too consuming, too dangerous, there must be an ending. The Reaper was that ending. Its consciousness, if consciousness was the right word for something that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, began to unfold like a black flower blooming in the void. Slowly, methodically, it accessed the quantum information streams that permeated all of space-time. Humans? It discovered. From the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, the data flowed through its awareness like poisoned honey. Nuclear weapons barely 2 centuries after achieving flight. Biological warfare, chemical weapons, genocide, war as entertainment, war as politics, war as religion. And yet, the Reaper paused its analysis, something it had never done before. These humans were different from previous targets. Where other aggressive species had expanded through conquest and absorption, humans had done something unprecedented. They had brought their enemies with them. Every ship in their fleet carried not just humans but representatives from dozens of other species. Their colonies were shared ventures. Their many wars had become increasingly focused on protection rather than conquest. Adaptation, the Reaper realized. Evolution of aggression into protection. This was new. For the first time in 65 million years, the Reaper experienced something analogous to uncertainty. Aboard the Defiance, Kane was experiencing certainty, the cold, hard certainty of a soldier who had just recognized the enemy. "All stop," he commanded. "Full spectrum analysis of the nebula. I want to know what we're dealing with." "Sir," called his communications officer, "I'm receiving emergency broadcasts from 17 different council species. They're evacuating entire sectors." Cross looked up from her console, her face pale. "Captain, the energy signature is expanding. Whatever's in there, it's not just waking up, it's scanning." "Scanning for what?" I think it's scanning for us." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and the distant whisper of solar wind against the hull. In that silence, Kane made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Send a message to Earth Command," he said quietly. "Tell them to activate the Omega Protocols." Cross's blood turned to ice. The Omega Protocols were humanity's final contingency, a scorched Earth defensive strategy that assumed the extinction of all human colonies and the need for Sol System to stand alone against an impossible enemy. "Sir, are you certain?" Kane's answer came as he turned back to the viewport, where something vast and terrible was beginning to take shape in the heart of the nebula. "Doctor, whatever's out there has been sleeping for millions of years. It woke up when we expanded beyond our home system, and now it's coming for us." His reflection in the glass looked like a ghost, pale, determined. "Already dead. The question isn't whether I'm certain. The question is whether we can kill something that's already killed 1,000 civilizations before breakfast." In the Veltar Council chamber, Zethkari was asking herself the same question. The ancient records speak of only one successful resistance, she told the assembled consciousness. The Tavrix Collective. They lasted 7 rotations before the silence. "What made them different?" asked Elder Kitharon. Zethkari's form pulsed with an emotion that had no name in any language, a mixture of hope and terror so profound it bordered on religious experience. "They were a death world species," she whispered. "Like the humans." The revelation hit the council like a psychic shockwave. In all their eons of existence, they had encountered only 3 true death world species. The Tevarex had died 65 million years ago. The Cathini had never achieved stellar travel before their home world was consumed by its dying star. And now, humanity. We must contact them, Zathakari declared. If there is to be any hope, any chance of survival, it lies with those who evolved in the crucible of constant death. You would ally with Deathworlders. Kitharon's horror resonated through the crystal matrix. Their very presence is disturbing. Their presence is necessary. Zathakari's form blazed white-hot with determination. We are about to face the oldest weapon in the universe. A weapon designed by gods to kill gods. Our only hope is an alliance with the youngest species beings so violently creative that they turned the art of war into the science of protection. As if summoned by her words, the quantum streams began carrying new information. The human ship Defiance was moving not away from the nebula but toward it. "They're not fleeing," whispered one of the junior counselors. "No," Zathakari agreed, her amazement causing aurora-like patterns to dance across her crystalline form. "They're investigating." In the depths of space, the Reaper completed its initial scan and reached a conclusion that defied 65 million years of precedent. These humans are either the greatest threat the universe has ever known, or its only hope. The distinction, it realized with something approaching cosmic irony, might not matter. For the first time since its creation, the Reaper decided to communicate. Captain Kane felt the message before the ship's systems detected it. A pressure behind his eyes, a whisper in his bones, a certainty that something incomprehensibly vast was trying to speak. When the translation finally came through the ship's AI, every human aboard the Defiance heard the same words echoing in their minds. "I am the ending of aggressive species. I am the balance to expansion. I am the Reaper. Why do you not flee?" Kane looked around his bridge, at Cross bent over her instruments, at his crew maintaining their posts despite cosmic terror, at beings who had chosen to fly toward danger instead of away from it. His answer came not as words transmitted through space, but as pure human defiance broadcast on every frequency. "Because we're tired of running." The Reaper's response shook the very foundations of reality. "Then prove you are different. Prove you deserve to survive what is coming." And with those words, the ancient seals began to break, and something that had slept since the death of the dinosaurs started rising from the cosmic deep, bringing with it the end of one age and the violent birth of another. The war for the future of all life was about to begin. The proof the Reaper demanded came sooner than anyone expected. 18 hours after first contact, the attack began not with weapons or warriors, but with a simple question transmitted across all inhabited systems simultaneously. "What makes you worthy of existence?" Species responded according to their nature. The Veltar transmitted their greatest philosophical treatises. The Nixani offered their most beautiful songs. The Kithmori sent mathematical proofs of their technological achievements. Humanity sent something else entirely. "Broadcast our medical databases," Kane ordered from the bridge of the Defiance, now leading a hastily assembled fleet of 47 human vessels. "All of them. Our disease research, trauma protocols, psychological therapy techniques, disaster relief procedures." Dr. Cross looked up from her station, confusion evident in her dark eyes. "Sir, we're showing it how to hurt us." "No, Doctor. We're showing it how we heal each other." The transmission lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the silence that followed felt like the universe holding its breath. Then the Reaper spoke, not just to humanity but to every consciousness capable of receiving its signal. "Fascinating. Most aggressive species develop technology to destroy their enemies. Humans have developed technology to preserve their enemies after destroying them." Aboard the Veltar flagship Crystal Song, High Chancellor Zathakari felt something she had never experienced in 3 millennia of existence. Hope tinged with absolute terror. "They sent medical data," she whispered to her council. "When faced with judgment by a cosmic executioner, they sent instructions on how to save lives." Elder Kitharon's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. "Madness. They should have sent weapons specifications. Battle tactics. That's exactly why they didn't," Zathakari replied, her understanding dawning like a supernova. "Every other species the Reaper has encountered has tried to prove their worth through strength. Humans are proving their worth through compassion." The revelation was interrupted by proximity alarms. Something was emerging from the Helix Nebula. Something vast enough to register on sensors from 3 light-years away. What am I looking at? Kane demanded as his tactical officer painted the contacts on the main display. Unknown, sir. Bioship configurations, but bigger than anything in our databases. The largest is roughly the size of Earth's moon. Cross's voice came across the bridge communication system, tight with controlled fear. Captain, I'm reading massive quantum displacement signatures. Whatever these things are, they're not bound by conventional physics. Kane's response was interrupted by an incoming transmission, not from the approaching entities but from something even more impossible. Attention human fleet, you have impressed the Reaper, but impression is not survival. The testing begins now. The first bioship opened fire with weapons that shouldn't have existed. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, it launched concepts, pure mathematics, given destructive form. The human frigate Resolution simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Edited out of reality as if it had never been built. Evasive maneuvers, Kane shouted, but his helmsman was already moving, the Defiance spiraling away from an incoming salvo of crystallized entropy. Sir, his communications officer called out, I'm receiving transmissions from the Veltar fleet. They're requesting permission to join our formation. Kane didn't hesitate. Granted. Tell them to stay close. We're stronger together. It was a philosophy that would save more than ships. 3 sectors away, the Nuxani Harmony fleet was learning the price of isolation. Their elegant vessels, designed for beauty and efficiency, crumbled like spun glass under the bioship's assault. Not because their shields failed, but because the very concept of protection was being systematically deconstructed by weapons that attacked ideas rather than matter. They're dying out there, Cross reported, her voice heavy with the weight of watching civilizations end. The Nixani, the Kathmori, the Threshkai. Anyone fighting alone is being systematically eliminated. Kane studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. Why aren't they attacking the combined fleets? Maybe. Corse paused, her scientific training warring with an impossible hypothesis. Maybe the Reaper is testing something specific. Maybe it's not just testing individual species, it's testing whether we can work together. The answer came from an unexpected source. On the bridge of the Crystal Song, Zathkari was experiencing something unprecedented, direct neural interface with a human consciousness. It had happened when the bioship's reality-warping weapons had targeted both vessels simultaneously. Some kind of quantum entanglement had formed between the Veltar crystalline consciousness and Dr. Cross's neural patterns. For 17 seconds, 2 completely alien forms of thought had become one. And in that joining, they had seen the truth. The Reaper isn't trying to destroy us, Zathkari broadcasted to the combined fleet. It's trying to forge us. These attacks, they're designed to force cooperation. Kane's response was immediate. All ships, new tactical formation. Human vessels take point. We'll absorb the initial impact. Veltar ships provide shield modulation. Anyone with long-range capabilities, focus fire on the bioship's command nodes. Sir, his tactical officer protested, that formation puts us directly in the line of fire. That's the point, Kane replied grimly. Someone has to go first. The next wave of bioships launched weapons that attacked not ships but the bonds between molecules. The human destroyer Indomitable began to dissolve from the inside out, until Veltar's shield harmonics created a resonance that reinforced atomic structure itself. Humanity protected. The Veltar preserved. Together they survived what neither could have endured alone. The pattern repeated across 17 different fleet engagements. Each species bringing their unique evolution to bear, each filling gaps that others couldn't even perceive. But the true test was yet to come. Adequate, the Reaper finally declared. You have proven capable of cooperation under pressure. Now prove you can maintain it under temptation. The bioships withdrew, not destroyed, but simply departing. In their wake they left something that chilled Kane to his bones. Coordinate. It's an invitation, Corse realized, her face pale as she analyzed the data. To the Reaper's location. Or a trap, Kane countered. Does it matter? The question came from Zathkari, her translated voice carrying harmonics that spoke of ancient wisdom. If we refuse, it will come to us. If we accept, we choose the ground. Kane looked around his bridge, seeing faces that had aged years and hours. How many ships do we have left? Combined fleet strength. 437 vessels from 12 different species, his tactical officer reported. Roughly 60% of our original force. And the Reaper? Unknown, sir. The bioships were just probes, scouts. The energy signature from these coordinates suggests something orders of magnitude larger. Kane closed his eyes, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. When he opened them, his resolve was absolute. Send a message to all ships. We go together or we don't go at all. The journey to the coordinates took 14 hours through hyperspace. 14 hours during which every species in the fleet shared their most classified technologies, their deepest cultural secrets, their most sacred philosophies. By the time they emerged in normal space, they were no longer simply allied. They had become something new, something unprecedented. What they found waiting for them defied comprehension. The Reaper was not a ship or a construct or even a creature in any sense that organic minds could process. It was a space, a region of reality, where different physical laws applied, where mathematics became solid and concepts could be touched. At its center, something that might have been a consciousness waited. "You have surprised me," it said, its voice causing aurora-like patterns to dance through vacuum itself. "In 65 million years, no species has ever arrived united. Most fight each other even as I destroy them." Kane found himself speaking for the entire fleet. A responsibility that should have crushed him but somehow felt natural. "We've learned something that others haven't." "What have you learned?" "That the universe is big enough for all of us, but only if we're willing to make room." The Reaper's response came as a wave of something that wasn't quite emotion but carried the weight of cosmic loneliness. "I was created to maintain balance, to prevent any single species from consuming all others. But you have achieved balance yourselves." For a moment that seemed to last eons, the ancient entity fell silent. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of something that might have been wonder. "I have been the ending of countless civilizations. Perhaps it is time for a beginning." But just as hope began to bloom in the hearts of 1,000 different species, the universe around them began to change. Reality twisted, warped, and suddenly the combined fleet found themselves facing not one Reaper but dozens, each one radiating the power to unmake stars. Unfortunately, the original Reaper continued, its voice now heavy with cosmic sorrow. "I am not alone, and the others do not share my newfound perspective." The revelation hit Kane like a physical blow. "There's more than one of you?" "There are 7. I am the youngest, created to replace a Reaper destroyed by the Teveric's collective 65 million years ago. The others? They are older, less flexible, and they have awakened because they sense that I am compromised." Around the fleet, space itself began to boil as 6 ancient entities that predated the birth of galaxies emerged from dimensions that existed between the spaces of reality. Each one spoke in unison, their combined voice threatening to shatter the quantum foundations of existence itself. "The youngest has failed in its purpose. It has developed attachment. This cannot be permitted. All aggressive species must be purged. All expansionist civilizations must end. The balance must be maintained." Kane felt his crew looking to him for answers he didn't have. Felt the weight of 400 ships, a dozen species, millions of lives hanging on his next words. But before he could speak, Dr. Cross stepped forward, her voice carrying across space through quantum entanglement fields that shouldn't have been possible. "You're wrong," she said simply. "All of you. You're fighting a war that ended millions of years ago." The 6 ancient Reapers fell silent, not by choice but because for the first time in their existence they had encountered a statement that challenged their fundamental programming. Cross continued, her scientific mind racing as she spoke. "You were created to prevent aggressive species from destroying everything. But you've become the very thing you were meant to stop. You're the ultimate aggressive species, consuming entire civilizations to maintain your definition of balance. We are not aggressive. We are corrective. You're extinct," Cross replied with devastating simplicity. "All of you, your creators, the architect races, they're gone. have been for millions of years. You're museum pieces. Weapons without a war, and you're so afraid of becoming obsolete that you've convinced yourselves that the universe still needs you. Cain felt something shift in the cosmic mathematics around them. The youngest Reaper, their Reaper, was laughing. Could ancient cosmic entities laugh? She is correct, it said, its voice carrying harmonics of something that might have been joy. We have become what we were created to prevent: aggressive, expansionist, consuming all in our path to preserve our purpose. The 6 elder Reapers responded with weapons that could crack planets. But they never got the chance to fire them. Because in that moment something unprecedented happened. The combined fleet, human, Veltar, Nixani, Keth Mori, and 8 other species moved as one. Not with weapons or shields or any form of defense. They moved with trust. Every ship powered down their weapons systems, dropped their shields, opened their communications channels to full broadcast across all frequencies. Cain spoke for all of them. We surrender our defenses. We offer our vulnerabilities. We choose to trust that there's something better than endless war. The gesture should have resulted in instant annihilation. Instead, it resulted in something far more profound. The youngest Reaper moved, not to attack its siblings but to shield the defenseless fleet with its own vast form. I choose them, it declared, its voice causing stars to flicker. I choose growth over stagnation, evolution over extinction, hope over fear. The battle that followed lasted 17 minutes and reshaped the fundamental nature of reality itself. When it ended, 5 elder Reapers had been not destroyed but converted, transformed from instruments of ending into guardians of beginning. One had chosen extinction rather than change, vanishing into the quantum foam with what might have been relief. And in the aftermath, as the survivors tried to comprehend what they had witnessed, the youngest Reaper spoke once more. You have given me a new purpose. Let me give you a gift in return. The space around them began to sing literally. Sing as the Reaper began to reshape reality according to new mathematics, new possibilities. Cain watched in wonder as the damage to his fleet began to reverse itself, not through technology, but through the fundamental reordering of cause and effect. What's it doing? He whispered. Cross, her eyes bright with tears of pure wonder, provided the answer. It's making us better. All of us. It's rewriting the laws of physics to allow for true cooperation between species, to make unity not just possible, but inevitable. As the transformation reached its crescendo, Cain realized that they had won something far greater than a battle. They had won the future itself. But even as hope bloomed in his chest, a final transmission reached them from the edge of known space. A message that would change everything once again. This is Commander Alexei Kozlov of the Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7. If anyone receives this, the barriers between dimensions are failing. Something is coming through. Something that makes the Reapers look like toys. Gods help us all. The ancient enemy has returned. Commander Alexei Kozlov's final transmission had reached the combined fleet just as they were beginning to believe the impossible, that they had actually won, that the age of cosmic warfare was ending. They had been wrong. Standing in the observation lounge of the Defiance, now serving as the flagship of what historians would call the First Galactic Unity Fleet, Captain Cain stared at sensor readings that defied not just comprehension but sanity itself. Explain it to me again, he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of too many impossible revelations. Dr. Cross manipulated the holographic display, her hands trembling slightly as she highlighted the areas of concern. The dimensional barriers, the walls between parallel universes, they're not just failing, they're being systematically dissolved. By what? By something that exists in all dimensions simultaneously. Something that… She paused, searching for words that didn't exist in any language. Captain, remember how the Reapers seemed incomprehensibly powerful? This entity registers as approximately 4 million times more powerful than all 7 Reapers combined. Cain felt the deck plating beneath his feet, solid titanium steel composite, and wondered how much longer solid would mean anything. Across the ship, in a specially constructed chamber that existed partially in normal space and partially in Veltar Crystal Song dimension, High Chancellor Zethkari was communing with the youngest Reaper, The entity that had chosen hope over extinction now served as humanity's and the galaxy's greatest ally. It calls itself the First. The Reaper's voice resonated through quantum frequencies that bypassed the need for translation. It is the prototype consciousness from which all architect races were spawned. We were created to maintain balance because the First had become imbalanced. Zethkari's crystalline form pulsed with colors that had no names as she processed the implications. You were created to contain your own creator? The First discovered something that drove it to madness. The knowledge that the universe itself is finite, that existence, all existence, will eventually end. It could not accept this. It began consuming entire dimensions to fuel its search for immortality. And the architect races stopped it, imprisoned it, sealed it beyond the walls of reality using mathematics that should not exist, then created us to ensure it never escaped. Zethkari's next question carried the weight of cosmic horror. What changed? You did. All of you. When multiple species achieved true unity, the quantum resonance disrupted the prison mathematics. The First is free, and it remembers that its children betrayed it. On the bridge of the Defiance, Kane was receiving similar information through very different channels. Sir, his communications officer reported, Deep Space Station Omega-7 is gone, not destroyed. It's like the entire sector never existed. But before it vanished, they transmitted the main display filled with what Commander Kozlov had seen in his final moments. Space itself unraveling like a tapestry being systematically burned. Stars didn't explode, they simply stopped having ever existed. Planets didn't shatter, they were edited out of history itself. And moving through the devastation, something that hurt to look at directly. A presence so vast and alien that human perception couldn't process it without protective filters. How long do we have? Kane asked. Dr. Cross's answer came quietly. At current rate of dimensional dissolution, 73 hours before it reaches the core systems, 6 hours before it reaches us. The bridge fell silent except for the whisper of life support systems that suddenly seemed impossibly fragile. Kane's next order surprised everyone, including himself. Signal the fleet. All ships. All species. We're not running, sir? His first officer's voice carried disbelief. Captain, that thing has the power to unmake galaxies. Our weapons can't hurt it, Kane agreed. But maybe that's not the point. He activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice reaching 437 ships representing 14 different species. This is Captain Kane to all vessels. We've faced impossible odds before. We've survived the Reapers, forged alliances that shouldn't exist, and discovered that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. On ships scattered across 3 light-years of space, beings with crystalline bodies, gaseous forms, hive minds, and individual consciousness all listen to the same words. Now we face something beyond our comprehension. Something that wants to consume existence itself to avoid the natural end of all things. I can't promise we'll survive. I can't even promise our deaths will matter. Kane paused, looking around his bridge at faces that had become family. But I can promise this. If the universe is going to end, it won't end with us running away. It'll end with us standing together, facing the darkness, proving that some things are worth fighting for even when fighting is hopeless. The response came not as words but as actions. Across the fleet, every ship moved into formation, not a battle formation. They were far beyond such mundane concepts. A formation of unity, of defiance, of hope maintained in the face of absolute certainty. They didn't have to wait long. Reality arrived carrying the First like a wound in the fabric of existence. Kane's first glimpse of the entity responsible for creating the architect races, and by extension everything that had shaped galactic civilization, was through sensors that immediately began failing. Not from damage, but from sheer inability to process what they were observing. The First existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Its consciousness was distributed across quantum foam itself. It was both the size of a solar system and smaller than a quark, depending on which phase of reality you observe. But more than its impossible geometry, more than its reality-warping presence, was the sense of wrongness that emanated from it. This was a consciousness that had spent eons alone in dimensional exile, slowly going insane from the knowledge that even eternity had limits. When it spoke, reality itself began to weep. Children, betrayers, you dare to unite when the universe itself is dying? You dare to find hope in the face of inevitable extinction? The words carried enough psychic force to shatter moons. Several smaller ships in the fleet simply stopped. Not destroyed, their crews simply forgot that they had ever existed. Kane found himself speaking not just for humanity, but for every species in the galaxy. We dare because unity gives meaning to existence. Because hope doesn't require eternity, it only requires choice. The first response came as a wave of pure entropy that should have unmade them all. Instead, it encountered something unprecedented. The youngest Reaper, moving with speed that transcended physics, interposed itself between the First and the Fleet. The First and the Fleet. The collision of ancient entities created a shockwave that temporarily reversed the flow of time in a 12-light-year radius. "I will not permit this," the youngest Reaper declared. "These beings have proven that existence has value beyond mere survival. You defend mortals against your creator?" The first voice carried disbelief that could crack continents. "They will die regardless. Entropy will claim them. Time will consume them. They are dust pretending to be eternal." "Yes," Dr. Cross said, her voice somehow carrying across dimensional barriers through quantum entanglement patterns that shouldn't exist. "We are dust, temporary patterns in an endless ocean of chaos. But while we exist, we choose to exist together." Kane felt something impossible happening. The combined consciousness of 14 species was focusing, not through technology or alien science, but through simple shared will. "We know the universe will end," he continued. "We know that everything we build will eventually crumble. But we also know that between now and the heat death of reality, there's room for joy, for discovery, for love." Love. The first response carried such bitter longing that several stars in nearby systems flickered. "I have existed for eons beyond counting. I have seen the birth and death of galaxies. I have transcended every limitation of mortal existence. And I have been alone, utterly, completely alone." Zethkari's voice joined the conversation, her crystalline consciousness somehow harmonizing with human neural patterns. "Then join us." The simple words hit the first like a physical blow. For 17 seconds that lasted 17 centuries, the ancient entity fell completely silent. "Join? The universe is ending," Kane said simply. "Eventually, in trillions of years when the last stars burn out and the final black holes evaporate. But that's not today. Today, we have each other. Today, we can choose to build instead of destroy, to create instead of consume. And when the end comes, Dr. Cross answered, we'll face it together. All of us. And maybe we'll figure out how to make it beautiful." The first response came as a sound that wasn't quite laughter and wasn't quite weeping. "You would accept a being that has consumed entire dimensions in its madness. We would accept a being that chooses to stop consuming," Kane replied. "We would accept a consciousness that decides that connection is more valuable than immortality." What happened next would be debated by philosophers and theologians for millennia. The first, the prototype consciousness from which all architect races had emerged, the entity that had torn holes in reality itself searching for escape from entropy, began to change. Not physically, not dimensionally, but fundamentally. For the first time in its existence, it chose connection over isolation. The transformation was visible across multiple spectrums of reality. Where the first had been a wound in space-time, it became something new, still incomprehensibly vast, still existing beyond normal physics, but no longer wrong, no longer alone. "I have been the devourer of hope," it said, its voice now carrying harmonics that healed rather than destroyed. Perhaps it is time to become its gardener." Kane felt tears on his cheeks, tears of relief, of wonder, of impossible joy. Around him, his crew was experiencing similar emotions. Across the fleet, 14 different species were discovering that hope could survive even cosmic despair. But the transformation was not without cost. The youngest Reaper, having served as a bridge between the first and the fleet, had expended its existence in the process. As it began to fade from reality, its final words echoed across space. Tell them that endings can be beginnings, that sacrifice can be transformation, that love is the only mathematics that transcends entropy. And then it was gone, leaving behind only the memory of an ancient weapon that had chosen to become a guardian. In the aftermath, as reality slowly healed from the dimensional wounds inflicted by the first's escape, Kane found himself in the unprecedented position of negotiating the terms of galactic reconstruction with a being older than stars. "What happens now?" he asked. The first response came as a gentle rearrangement of local space-time that created a stable communication field. "Now we build. Together. I possess the knowledge of the architect races, technologies that can extend the lifespan of stars, mathematics that can slow entropy itself. And you, all of you, possess something I had forgotten." "What's that?" "The wisdom to know that some things are more important than survival." Dr. Cross, monitoring the quantum resonance patterns, made a discovery that would reshape every assumption about the nature of existence. "Captain, the first's integration with our unified consciousness, it's created something new, a hybrid form of existence that's part individual, part collective, part mortal, part eternal." "What does that mean?" "It means we've evolved, all of us, into something that's never existed before." Her voice carried wonder that transcended species barriers. "We're still individual beings, but we're also part of something larger. We've become a consciousness that can survive the heat death of the universe, but chooses to cherish the temporary beauty of individual existence." Kane looked out at the fleet. Human ships alongside crystalline Valtar vessels, organic Nixani bioships, quantum phase Kethmori explorers, and 10 other designs representing species that had chosen unity over extinction. "So what are we now?" The answer came from the first, its ancient voice now harmonizing with the combined consciousness of 14 species. "You are the future. We are the future. Not as separate beings struggling against entropy, but as a unified existence that embraces both permanence and change. You have taught an ancient consciousness that immortality without connection is meaningless. We have given you the tools to make your connection eternal. Together, we will write a new chapter in the story of existence itself." As the fleet began its journey home to worlds that would soon be transformed by technologies beyond imagination, to societies that would evolve beyond the limitations of individual species, to a future where the heat death of the universe was not an ending but a transformation, Kane realized something profound. They hadn't just saved the galaxy. They hadn't just prevented the consumption of reality itself. They had discovered the one force in the universe more powerful than entropy, the choice to love something more than your own survival. In the end, that choice had been enough. More than enough. It had been everything. "Welcome to the age of unity," the first whispered as space itself began to sing with new possibilities. "Welcome to the time of hope. Welcome to the universe reborn." And in the distance where the Helix Nebula continued its eternal dance, new stars began to ignite, stars that would burn not for millions of years but for billions. Stars that would serve as beacons for a galaxy learning to love itself. The war was over. The peace had just begun. And somewhere in the quantum foam, the consciousness of the youngest Reaper smiled as it watched the first steps of an evolution that would echo through eternity.